In 1990, the entirety of the entertainment world was still scrambling to capitalize on the cultural and financial success of Tim Burton's 1989 blockbuster, Batman. Movie studios and television executives were looking for intellectual properties to buy and develop, and the comic book industry entered a boom and began flooding the market with new titles and, more noticeably, resurrected characters from the past for a second shot at mainstream fame. For me, the one book that stood out, the character that caught my eye, was given his second chance in May of 1990. Marvel released issue number 1 of Ghost Rider Volume 3. Howard Mackie, Javier Saltares, and Mark Texeira led the team of artists who gave us Daniel Ketch, the previous Ghost Rider Johnny Blaze's long-lost brother. Welcome back to the comic verse, everyone. Everyone who's been with me for these videos knows that I'm a DC guy, but that does not mean I do not have a lot of love for Marvel. And the Ghost Rider is one of my favorites in the Marvel comic book universe, and I'm excited to bring to you a comic book that holds a special place for my youth. But before I do, remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share this video out. It really helps out the channel each and every week. We begin in Cypress Hills Cemetery. Barbara and Danny Ketch are walking through the famed cemetery at night. Barbara is excited to be there, but Danny is worried about all of the rumors about the graveyard, murders, child abductions, religious cults. But Barbara dismisses her little brother's concerns. She is more concerned with seeing Harry Houdini's final resting place on Halloween Eve. Still, Danny has a bad feeling. Just then, a bunch of kids jump out from behind some headstones wearing Halloween masks and scare Danny into a panic. One of the teens tries to grab Danny's camera bag, but Barbara gives her a swift kick to the back, and the rest of the group runs away, announcing themselves as the Cypress Pool Jokers, leaving Barbara and Danny to continue their search. A few minutes later, Danny hears what he believes to be a gunshot. Barbara, curious and eager to get a picture, climbs over an embankment to see into Gallagher's junkyard, where the same group of teens are now mixed in with members of the Kingpin's organization and a masked man who are pointing weapons at each other. The masked man has apparently executed one of the Kingpin's couriers, and now all hell is set to break loose. The masked man seems to back down at first, but as the Kingpin's men move forward to retrieve their package, our mystery man's allies quickly execute them all, one by strangulation, one by crossbow, and the last by breaking of the neck. Our masked man then announces himself as Death Watch. In a moment of fear, Barbara's camera clicks and flashes, alerting Death Watch and his men of her location. They fire upon her, striking her through the chest with an arrow. Danny can do nothing but watch as she falls to the bottom of the hill. One of the Jokers sees that the package that caused all of this conflict is just lying on the ground. She decides to take it for herself. Death Watch, seeing this, commands his men to retrieve it at all costs, and then replaces his mask as he decides to leave and no longer be amongst this human refuse. Meanwhile, Danny is trying to hide Barbara and himself amongst the mountains of junked vehicles until the coast is clear and he can get her to a hospital. But as he does this, two glowing eyes appear in the darkness, and Danny screams for them to go away. At the same time, two of Death Watch's men follow the trail of Barbara's blood to a dead end. They try coaxing Danny and Barbara out with false promises of providing medical help. Danny tries to comfort Barbara, promising her that she won't be hurt again. And at that time, lights start to glow all around them. The lights illuminate a motorcycle amongst the junk cars, except this motorcycle looks brand new. It should not be there, but Danny ignores it because he is concerned with all of the blood that Barbara is losing. Outside the junk heap, one of Death Watch's men has captured the girl who stole the briefcase. However, the men are running out of time. Surely the police have been alerted and are on their way. Death Watch wanted no witnesses, so one of the men brandishes a thermite grenade. Danny, trying to stop Barbara from losing any more blood, hears one last false promise from the assassins. Out of options, Danny states that he would do anything to save Barbara. Just then, the gas cap on the motorcycle begins to glow. He touches it with his blood-stained hand, and then he is engulfed and penetrated by a blinding golden light. Outside the heap, the assassins prepare to murder the young girl and detonate the grenade to eliminate anyone else. They are then interrupted by a thunderous rumble. The ground begins to shake, and a strange glow is beginning to emanate from the wreckage. Then, like a bullet from a gun, a motorcycle with flaming wheels shoots out towards the men. Its rider, a leather-clad being with a flaming skull for a head, cradling the limp body of Barbara, announcing to them all, I am Ghost Rider, the spirit of vengeance. Death Watch's men regroup and threaten to kill them all. One approaches Ghost Rider with sai in hand. Ghost Rider demands that they release the girl. They do not, and this first attacker is sent flying backwards with one punch of the rider. Still, two are left. Ghost Rider then pulls the chains from his shoulders and whips through the sword and chin of the next man up. The third is wrangled by that same chain as Ghost Rider stares into his eyes to release the pain of 1,000 innocent beings upon the man's soul. And as he screams in terror, the police arrive and the young girl runs off, still in possession of the briefcase. The police attempt to arrest Ghost Rider, believing he's just a man in a mask. Ghost Rider tells them that Barbara needs medical attention, but they are too concerned with cuffing our new hero. And although they try, they fail. The last one pointing a gun at the rider's head, which he swiftly swats away. He then lifts the cop over his head with one hand and tosses him at his fellow officers as he states, "The innocent blood spilled here tonight must be avenged. It is my solemn duty." And as he rides off, the police open fire, the bullets having no effect on him or his motorcycle. The Ghost Rider, a little annoyed at this, exclaims that he cannot be stopped, and with one hand flips one cop car on top of the other. Then he finally speeds off out of the junkyard. Astonished, the officers tend to Barbara and call for backup. A few minutes later, the Ghost Rider is seen cruising down a city block. A patrol car spots him and pursues. Ghost Rider shifts gear and races away from them at a speed they cannot match. But Ghost Rider turns into another roadblock, more cop cars. However, this is nothing for the Ghost Rider. His motorcycle jumps over the patrol cars and continues to race on with multiple cars now in pursuit, until another roadblock, this one with more vehicles and weapons drawn. Still, the rider barrels through everything because nothing can stop him from finding those who have spilt the blood of the innocent. Nothing. Moments later, as more officers are called in, it seems they have the Ghost Rider trapped again. He is turned down an alleyway, another dead end. But this is the Ghost Rider. He continues riding up the side of a tenement building, leaving the cops below in utter disbelief. Later that night, back at the cemetery, the Ghost Rider comes to a stop. He examines his hands in the flames. He seems tired, and the flames dissipate and his leather melts away. In its place, human hands, the hands of Daniel Ketch. He wonders what has happened, what has he done, and he runs to find Barbara to get away from this motorcycle. The next morning, on Wall Street, the man known as Death Watch sits in a three-piece suit behind a large desk in a top-floor office. The three men who failed to retrieve his briefcase enter and try to explain their failure. However, Death Watch gets up, and we see for the first time a glimpse of his power. He grabs one of the men by the head, inserting his fingers with precision through his skin and skull, and sees the man's memories from the previous night. He sees Ghost Rider, and he sees pain. When he releases the assassin, he drops to the floor dead. Alarmed, another one of the assassins tries to shoot Death Watch first, but has his neck snapped for his trouble. The other two men thank him for his sacrifice, because they can now live and try to retrieve the briefcase. For Death Watch, he needs to possess it before, as he calls him, that fat, petty thug can recover it first. Across Manhattan, at the Fisk building, Wilson Fisk, businessman, criminal, but in reality, the kingpin of all criminal activity in New York City, is working out by taking on 6 martial arts masters at once, and one of them lands a lucky slice across Fisk's belly, to which Fisk remarks, "Finish me." Kenji, the martial artist, leaps at Kingpin, ready to strike with his katana. His mistake. The Kingpin tells him that he relies on his katana too much, and that any weapon can be taken away. The Kingpin shows off his advanced speed and strength by clasping the katana blade and snapping it into pieces. He then tosses Kenji into the wall before getting an update on his stolen merchandise, that very briefcase that Death Watch wants so much. Later that night at Salem Fields, another part of Cypress Hill Cemetery, the young Cypress Pool Joker girl, Polly, the one who absconded with the briefcase in question, has reached her gang's hideout, a mausoleum, where her cohorts are relieved to see her and excited to see what's in the case. They pop the locks only to find no money, no drugs, just 3 canisters inside. Disappointed and confused about why so many thugs were after these things, the gang decides to hide the canisters where no one will ever find them. In another part of the city, Daniel Ketch stumbles into the emergency room desperate to find Barbara, his hands and clothes covered in blood. His mother is waiting with Captain Dolan and his daughter, but that is all he sees before falling unconscious. The next day, Daniel Ketch is released. He's not harmed in any way, just exhausted. Captain Dolan tries to get Danny to remember anything, but he says he has no memory of what happened the night before. We learn that Barbara is still alive, but in critical condition. Danny asks to see her, just for a few minutes while the doctor discusses her condition with Danny's mother. Speaking to his comatose sister, Danny breaks down from guilt about not being able to do better protecting her, and sadness for not having her to confide in. He sits for a bit, the silence broken only by the steady beep of Barbara's heartbeat. A few hours later, Danny has decided to return to the motorcycle he abandoned. For him, it is the only way to get answers. His hope is that whatever magic happened the night before can be harnessed to heal his sister. And with that, he speeds off into the night. Half a mile away on Jamaica Avenue, the Cypress Pool Jokers are busy harassing pedestrians. Suddenly, a car screeches to a halt in front of them. 4 of Kingpin's men exit the vehicle and ask for the Jokers to tell them where the briefcase is. Ralphie gets belligerent with one of the men, telling him to leave his street. The man pulls a gun and tells Ralphie he's got a nice mouth and that he's going to have another one in the back of his head. But before the man can fire his weapon, a dagger is thrown into Ralphie's chest. The 4 men look up to see 4 of Deathwatch's assassins scaling down the side of a building. They tell them to back off, that the kids belong to them. Learning from their mistakes the night before, Kingpin's men then reveal that they have body armor. They open fire, determined to kill all of Deathwatch's men. The Jokers try to escape the crossfire as Danny rolls up on Jamaica Avenue. He hears the screaming and the gunfire. At that moment, the gas cap begins to glow once again. Danny debates whether to touch it or not, but ultimately he does. He's engulfed in mystical fumes, which ignite into hellfire, and instantaneously Danny is transformed into the Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance. Those who look on are in disbelief. As the Jokers take cover, both the Kingpin and Deathwatch's men see the oncoming Ghost Rider, just before he levels one of Kingpin's men with his motorcycle. Now all of the criminals turn their attention to ending our Spirit of Vengeance. Bullets do nothing to the Ghost Rider. They merely pass through him, causing no damage. Our hero tells the men that they will all learn soon enough as he whips his chain through the air, the links separating and each turning into deadly flying barbs that shred one of Deathwatch's men before returning to link up once again. And as the Ghost Rider attempts to get the kids to safety, one of Kingpin's men uses a chain of his own to lasso him. But this is even more ineffective than bullets. The Ghost Rider powers him up into the air and sends him crashing into one of Deathwatch's men with bone-crunching effect. Frustrated, one of Kingpin's men takes out a grenade launcher and targets the Ghost Rider. He fires a direct hit. The Ghost Rider is seemingly gone, whatever is left of him buried under rubble. The only remaining members of Kingpin and Deathwatch's crews agree to a ceasefire until they can get the information they need out of Polly. They threaten her life, but she only knows where one canister is hidden. She hid one in a mausoleum, and Ralphie and Johnny each hid one in another mausoleum, but only they know where. Kingpin's goon decides to take her to his boss, because they have people who can help her to remember. Deathwatch's assassin thinks otherwise. As the 2 men threaten to kill each other, they notice that the Ghost Rider has risen once again. His chain whips through the air, cracking the skulls of each of the remaining hired guns, putting them down for good. The Ghost Rider then tells Polly, "Don't be afraid." Moments later, Ghost Rider carries Ralphie into the emergency room. He orders the shocked doctors to help him immediately. When satisfied that Ralphie and Polly will be all right, the Ghost Rider strides back out. After all, who's gonna stop him? By day's end, the papers are filled with stories about the Ghost Rider. Some call him a hero, others, like Captain Dolan, blame him for all the death and destruction. He tells Danny that he won't rest until he's brought this killer to justice. Danny tries to convince him otherwise, but it's no use. Danny relents and decides to just visit with his sister. Although still unconscious and unable to answer, Danny asks Barbara for advice, then tells her that he does not want to turn into that monster again. But he did save 2 kids' lives. He then wonders, if he is this powerful Ghost Rider, why can't he save her too? In that same moment, Wilson Fisk has trashed his own office in anger. He wants no more excuses. Those canisters must be in his hands and not the wrong ones. Otherwise, his entire operation, his entire city, will be in jeopardy. And finally, on Wall Street, Death Watch has executed another example of failure. He instructs his men to find the children, or find the Ghost Rider, and then locate the canisters and kill all the witnesses. Thus ends issue number 1 of Volume 3 of Marvel's Ghost Rider. The story continues and spans another 3 issues, bringing more mayhem and chaos to the streets of New York City. In the future, the Ghost Rider will go on to battle against Death Watch, the Kingpin, the Necrotic Blackout, Mr. Hyde, and encounter the Punisher, X-Factor, and Doctor Strange, among others. I hope you enjoyed this look back at the 90s reboot of The Spirit of Vengeance. If you need more comic book fun right away, click on the thumbnail at the end of this video for our look back at Red Hulk and see if Captain America Brave New World got that character right or missed the mark completely. As always, I thank you for watching. Remember, I'm still your reluctant gringo from somewhere south of the border. Salut and a huevo.